This episode of Lawyers Tell All is brought to you by Law Firm Conversions. If your law firm's phone is ringing, that only means your marketing is successful. It's what happens when the phone is answered that will drive your success or failure. Visit www.intakeacademy.com and claim your free copy of this groundbreaking book, along with resources on mental health for intake specialists and empathy. Plus, become eligible to receive a free 15-minute consult with Chris Mullins. Welcome to the Lawyers Tell All podcast, where Chris Mullins, the preeminent sales and communications consultant in the legal industry, shows you how it looks through lawyers' eyes. Here, innovators in the trenches provide powerful insights that help you connect with new clients, handle the sometimes harsh realities of the legal profession, and embrace the mindsets needed to succeed. Be sure to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, tune in, and let's take a deep dive.
Hello, everyone. It's Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All, and today I am going to interview Paul Angelle. And Paul is going to tell you about himself, and he'll probably pronounce his name a lot better than I did. Go ahead, Paul.
You did a great job. It's Angelle. It's not far off from what you said at all.
Okay.
My name is Paul Angelle. I consider myself a lot of things, but mainly what I do for work is I am a business planner and an accountability coach. I help small businesses grow, and it's usually by taking a step backwards where they can become reacquainted, or maybe acquainted for the first time with their numbers. I'm really a big believer in that kind of stuff. My background is I did go to law school, learned there. I didn't want to practice law, but it really my niche is law firms, just because that's what I've done. I've managed law firms. I've worked as a COO, a CEO. I have an inappropriate relationship with growth.
Mm-hmm.
When I bring on clients, if they're not interested in growing, we don't really get along very well.
Yeah.
I don't fit. I'm just not interested in them anymore. The magic's gone when they say they no longer want to grow.
Yeah.
But growth is possible regardless of where you're at, but I've learned it involves taking a step back and, being honest and embracing your.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Mm-hmm. So how do you help law firms through that process, through the numbers? Like what is your area of expertise? With a lot of people talk about numbers, but what's your thing?
Right. Well, I actually back it up a little bit. I go further back. Like, I want to know, why are you doing this? Because I want to make sure they're not leaving a job where they're paid well to go work for themselves, where they think they're going to earn more and work less.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically especially a lawyer, when you leave the safe confines of the firm, you're basically giving up a 40 or 50 hour a week job for a 60 to 80 hour a week job, and a pretty harsh reduction in income. And it's not because you want to be your own boss and you want to take off on Fridays in the firm. None of that happens. I want to know why they're doing what they're doing, because not everybody can or should, or nor should they be running a business. Being an entrepreneur, I don't want to say there has to be something wrong with you, but to be an entrepreneur, it's a certain mindset or a skill set that doesn't really work well.
Mm-hmm.
Restricted. But some people flourish there. So I find out why they're doing it. I find out why they're working at all. What's their purpose? What's their reason? And I challenge them on it, because when I ask someone, what's your purpose and why do you do all the things you do, they'll always say, oh, my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, right, that's what everybody said.
Yeah.
That's not your why. That's a responsibility, obligation. Most people I know that have kids, I have no doubt that they would kill or die for these people. They love them unconditionally, but it's not their purpose.
Yeah.
It's what they have to do. Yeah. Your purpose is something else. And when you find out what it is, and you can be honest about it and not feel guilty that your purpose is hunting or fishing and not your daughters, that's a really level of depth that you have to make time. But in order not to feel guilty, you got to make time for hunting and time for the family. That's what I want to know what the why is. I want to get honest about it. And then I want them to know what their goals are. And in almost every case, the goals need work. They're not specific enough. They don't have a deadline. They don't have a lot of things. And when we start pushing on the goals, I want to know we're going to work together. I'm a growth freak. I want to grow this business. And it's going to cause a bunch of problems. It's going to break a bunch of stuff, but it's going to be good in the end. We got to grow. I need to make sure you're with me. But we're going to grow. And if we're going to grow, you're going to have more money to spend. And if you're going to have more money to spend, what are you going to buy this year or in the next 12 months or the next 18 months? And that's when you start to find out what excites them or what gets them motivated. And everyone's different. It's very personal. Some people, it's vacationing. It's seeing places. It's status. It's a $300,000 car. The list. I live in South Louisiana. It could be a gun and a four-wheeler. It just doesn't matter, and it doesn't really matter to me. It's just once I know what it is, that helps me tap into their motivation. Because
what do you do with that? What do you do with the motivation to get to the dig down with the numbers?
Well, once we have the goals. And like if I create a business plan based on the goals, not based on, I want to do $2 million because I did $1 million 2 years ago. I want to know, what are the goals going to cost? We get very specific. If you tell me you want a Corvette and I ask you how much does a Corvette cost and you don't know, I don't count that as a goal. You need to go find that out. But once we get there, we've got these numbers. We know what it's going to cost every month, every quarter, every year to have this Corvette or whatever the goal is. Well, that lets us know what kind of net impact on the TOB we need, which means we need to have an equal or larger impact on the top end revenue. Well, what does that mean? That means either an average case value increase or more sales. Usually it's a combination of both. But if we need more sales, well, how many sales appointments showed up versus how many people did you sell? That's a good number to know. And how many showed up is a percentage of how many appointments you set. And how many appointments you set is a percentage of how many leads you got or qualified leads. And how many qualified leads is a percentage of how many total leads. So it's like a funnel, right? You start out with 100 leads and it turns into 60 appointments and 50 of them show up and 25 of them engage and 20 of them pay. But we got 20 paid clients out of 100 leads. I'm oversimplifying the process, but once you know all your stops on that funnel and you know what you have to get, you can stop focusing on the dollar amount you need. Even though it's tied to the goals, the dollar amount is still a dollar amount. If you are intimate with your numbers and you know what they are and you understand the ebb and flow and you can predict things, you simply know I need this many leads this week. And if I don't get that many leads this week, I'm going to fall short unless I make it up next week. So if you need, 80 leads a month, well, you need 20 a week. And if on Friday you're at 10, the highest best use of your time as the owner of this business is to go find 10 leads. Go call your clients, call your referral partners, call your network, shake the trees, go to a meeting. Do whatever you got to do, because we know, based on knowing our numbers, like knowing the average case value and knowing this many leads gets us this many sales, we know if we get those 40 leads a month, we're going to have the number that's going to give us whatever it is we want. And no one wants to have a conversation with their significant other and say, the 2 weeks in Greece, it's going to be a long weekend at the Jersey Shore instead.
Right.
You don't want to have that. You don't want to tell your kids, hey, that scary public school we drive by all the time? You're going to go there because I had a bad quarter. Or we're not going to get the new kitchen. we're going to keep the plastic cabinets and the Formica countertops one more year. Nobody wants to have that conversation. So they just don't have bad quarters. They focus and they do whatever they need to do. But when you get to that level, and I've seen this and it works. When you're to the level, you're focusing on what you're pouring into the pitcher instead of focusing on the revenue, which is the end result. You have that kind of sustainable continuity, because the second you get in a cash crunch, when you're focusing on revenue, especially in a law firm, what do? You steal all of next month's revenue. You close out, you do whatever you can do to get all the money from next month into this month. And because you're focusing on that, guess what you're not focusing on? Leads. When you're consistently focusing on leads, those 40 leads that we needed, they're not all going to bill or deliver revenue this month. Some are going to be next month, some are going to be next quarter, some might be a year from now. But when you're focusing on the revenue, you're not replenishing it. And it's a mindset change, and it's not instant. You have to learn to trust the numbers and see it in action, I guess.
Yeah, well, so I mean, so you said it a little while ago, it's like a simple example that you're giving, but this example can be for a small firm or medium firm or a large firm, just, certain pieces.
And it works with contingency, which is, a different animal. It works with flat rates. It works with
it doesn't matter.
Billable hours. It works in other businesses. Law firms are my niche because I'm the strongest there. I know the most about them. But I have clients that sell insurance. I have clients that have a kayak business. It's fascinating to me. It's not a law firm, but they need marketing, they need sales, they need leads, they need all the same things.
Yeah. So the thing though is, so it's all well and good to have your why, and that's what you're going after. And if you really have the right why, you can passionately get to all these other steps legitimately. But then there's the other piece of, okay, like how many leads? Well, okay, well, who's gonna close those leads? And also, how many people do you need to close X amount of leads? Like, okay, we got the leads. Now what? What's going to happen?
And that part of the heavy lifting, and I glossed right over it, is most people don't really have a close, tight, intimate relationship with their numbers. They don't. They need to. I like that a lot of people don't, because when I work with someone and I can teach them that, they instantly have an advantage over anyone else doing what they're doing, because no one else is that involved with their numbers. But yeah, I would say at least 80% of the people that come to me, they think that their problem is marketing. And they might be right, but more than half the time they're wrong. Marketing and sales are two very different things. Sales hasn't changed in thousands of years. Marketing changed 6 weeks ago, and it's going to be different in 6 weeks from now. But to know those numbers means you have to have, you've got to have reports, right? You need data that has integrity. You need a consistent intake process. You can't have two people doing it two different ways. You need to know how to evaluate the ROI or the KPIs or the whatever metrics you need to know about your marketing, because that's usually 10% or more of your budget. And you can waste it pretty quickly. And if you wasted it, you still need the leads. So to get those numbers, that's the hard part. And that's, I break things down by quarters. And I usually say the first quarter, I work with someone who didn't know their numbers really well. It's like a train wreck and a dumpster fire at the same time. And then usually the second quarter, it's one or the other. It's either a train wreck or a dumpster fire, but it's not both. The third quarter, we've got a consistent policy in place. We've got the right people doing the right things with regard to compiling this data and scheduling appointments and closing the appointments, either by attorneys or non-attorney salespeople or whatever, however the system is. But having the right people do that, really, the way you know it is if you know their numbers, because there's some lawyers who'll close 90% of the people that get in front of them. But it takes them 12 hours to do a $2,000 flat rate will. Well, you don't need to be doing the wills. You need to be doing the initial appointments where the people feel comfortable enough to engage for the services. You want to have the right people in the right seats, and figure that out by knowing what their numbers are. If you don't know the numbers, you can't improve anything if you can't measure it. And that's why the system's so important. But once you got it, it's like I talk about goals. If it takes me 10 hours to build a business plan, we probably spent 8 hours on the goals. I'm just digging into the goals, getting into the specifics, getting into the why don't you have it yet? Why didn't you get it? Why do you want that? Why do you want this rare football card? Those types of questions help me, because once they get to a point where the marketing's not working, I'm not getting enough leads. Okay, well, what is it on your goals that we're going to scratch out? Because either you figure that out or we start scratching things off your goals. That's extremely motivating. It's motivating at the right stage because it's on the front end. Everything builds from that. And well, that's how I do it. That's how I approach it. And I have a lot of success. People I work with, I want to say they're small law firms, but small businesses. But that includes businesses with, 7 figures in revenue. So when you're growing 60% year over year, that's significant and it's consistent. A lot of times people that do what I do say, oh, 3x or 10x growth. That's usually not sustainable in a service orient. I mean, you don't have the capacity to multiply by 10 times in a year unless you've got an angel investor, because to turn a $100,000 firm into $1 million firm is going to cost you about $1 million.
Yeah. I would say though, I would say that an attorney in the sales seat is not the right seat. I mean,
usually you're 100% correct.
Yeah. I mean,
and I'll back that up, because I was a salesman. I was in sales for 20 years, sales management, sales training. And I went to law school at night in my 30s. And I was working during the day. I was under a lot of pressure to meet headcount and hire entry-level sales reps. And I felt like everybody in that nighttime Loyola Law School was smarter than me. And at the same time, I didn't mention that I had daytime job availability. I had a 6-figure job that I could offer them during the day, but I didn't see anybody that would have been qualified to do it, that had, that understood the numbers game, that understood the constant rejection, the motivation that you have to. It's a different skill set for a good lawyer. When I see someone who is a lawyer but is a good salesman, I bet they're not the best one in court. I bet they're not the best lawyer. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't do it, but when I meet someone who's really good in court, I safely assume that they're probably not the best person to engage the client.
So I think of the opposite. I think that an attorney that's really good at trial, that attorney can definitely sell that, but they might not want to. So the skills that you would use in the courtroom are the same. I mean, communication skills, relationship skills, presentation skills, how you ask questions and pausing and empathy and active listening. And I mean, it's all there, but that doesn't mean that they want to actually do sales. They could do it. They just don't want to, nor do they think that they have the skills. But in my experience, I see that they do, but they might not be the right person.
And you realize that you think the dramatic closing arguments in a trial, that's a really small part of what a lawyer does. In fact, the gross majority of all lawyers never do that ever in their career. But even those, high level, big money trial lawyers that and some of these high end, big ticket sales reps, on Wall Street and stuff, even them, the grind of the job is that's just the last step. The earlier steps is the prospecting, it's the networking, it's the relationship building, it's the, favors, it's the knocking on doors, it's the constant rejection. But it pays off when you close a big deal. Just like lawyering, to be a senior partner at a big, giant, fancy firm that you're litigating and you're giving closing arguments, you probably worked in a cubicle after graduating from a Ivy League school and basically did paralegal work for 10 years before you got the right to be an assistant associate to someone who was doing that for another decade or longer. It's not the grind in sales. I saw the progression. You could go from being entry level to major accounts to manager, regional director, vice president. In fact, most of the rock stars in sales in the entry level space, they're a disaster when you get them into management or when you get them in. There's some really great basketball players who couldn't be a good coach. They expect everybody to have the same mindset and work ethic and skill set. And
well, so 100%. And let me ask you this: how can everybody get in touch with you?
Sure. My company is called La Familia. It's all phase of coaching, but it's business planning and accountability coaching. And I can't do one without the other. If you don't want a business plan, I can't hold you accountable. Yeah. And if you don't have a business, if you don't want to be held accountable, I don't care how good the business plan is, it's going to sit on your desktop or in a drawer. It's not going to be alive. But lawfamilia.net is my website. And on there, I have a contact us link. It takes you to my Calendly site, and you can schedule I call it a discovery call, but it's a free hour of coaching. I've taught people how to create their own business plan, and they went off and did it. And it's not something I charge for, and more power to them. I just like to fill my calendar with as many of those discovery calls because I'm looking for someone that is going to really, really want and need and benefit from what I do. And the way for me to do that is to talk to as many people in that space as possible.
Awesome. That is excellent. All right. Well, I appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, 100%. All right, everyone. Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All. We'll see you again real soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Lawyers Tell All, where Chris Mullins takes you on a journey with lawyers in the trenches who show you the realities of what it takes to succeed in this chaotic, crowded, ever-changing profession. Remember to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Lawyers Tell All.